Shalom, I'm Rabbi Michael Panitz. I'm the Rabbi of Temple Israel of Norfolk, Virginia, speaking to you from the pulpit of our synagogue. It's now the interval between the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, and the festival of Sukkot, which means booths or tabernacles. My message is entitled Reclaiming Sukkot. Remember both its outward and inward messages. Sukkot has my nomination for being the neglected stepchild of Jewish holidays. The reason for the neglect of Sukkot is its proximity to the high holidays. Like a planet lost in the glare of its star, it can be hard to see and harder still to comprehend. Just as there are many Christians today who know Christmas Eve, but scratch their heads trying to remember what the significance of Twelfth Night in their sacred calendar is, we can lose sight of Sukkot because of the widespread popularity of the holidays that precede it by a few days and by 2 weeks. And yet, in the days of the Bible, Sukkot was the jewel in the crown of the Jewish calendar. It was, quote, the holiday par excellence, the one on which we were told that while we rejoice on all holidays, on this one we are particularly joyous. The rabbis simply called it Chag, the holiday, just as they called the Day of Atonement Yoma, the day. Sukkot is making a modest comeback in our religious movement. When I was a child, it was quite rare for members of our congregations to have their own backyard booths. We built and decorated quite a nice one at the synagogue, where, strictly speaking, no sukkah is needed, since no one is living there. And we failed to fulfill the commandment, the mitzvah, of building booths for our own dwelling. In microcosm, that was our problem. We exported Judaism to the synagogue, and we did not tend it adequately in the home and the school. That is why our movement did not thrive for longer than 2 generations, despite its post-Second World War demographic strength. We were a mile wide and an inch deep. Now we are far fewer, but more of us are more serious about their Jewish engagement. So there is hope. Just yesterday, one of our members, a Jew by choice, sent me a photograph of herself and her husband sitting in their sukkah, the first one they have built. Another 5 of our congregational members, 4 of them already years into their self-chosen Jewish lives, and one still in his time of preparation, joined the team from our men's club to erect the synagogue sukkah, and also the one in our own backyard that Sheila, Emily, and I enjoy. Being most unhandy with tools, I appreciate the work of this team immensely. In fact, this year, our crew of sukkah builders was significantly strengthened by the participation of younger members. This is a good sign of rejuvenation. It is relatively modest, of course. Our average age continues to climb, but a younger lobe is appearing in our age distribution. As the prophet Jeremiah said, and as we heard chanted in the Haftarah for the second day of the Rosh Hashanah holiday, Yesh tikva la'acharitech, there is hope for your future. Another sign of this rejuvenation is the imminent restart of our worship services for young people and for the grown-ups who love them. A few of the plank holder families of this group will join us this coming Wednesday Eve when we have a congregational barbecue dinner and worship service to celebrate the first night of Sukkot. Then on the first Friday night in November, we will launch our, quote, Shabbat Happens service, On the first Friday of each month, we will have a child-oriented half-hour time of prayer song, Jewish story, and Shabbat-themed snack. Later in the year, we intend to introduce some Jewish craft sessions as well on Sunday afternoons. I believe that when people make, knead, and braid their first challah dough when they are still children, they are creating Jewish synaptic connections in their developing brains. Let me return to a Sukkot thought by way of conclusion. The rabbis debated the meaning of this biblical text. I made the children of Israel to reside in Sukkot, Leviticus chapter 23. These booths were clouds of glory. This is the statement of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Akiva says they established for themselves actual booths. And this debate is recorded in the Babylonian Talmud, the tractate Sukkah 11b. Actual or metaphysical booths? The resolution of this debate ought to be the same as that of another Talmudic debate. Quote, both of these are the words of the living God. Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim. If this holiday is going to draw us near to God, as well as to nourish us, we need the gestalt of being in an actual sukkah, the autumnal scent and temperature, the simple pleasure of alfresco dining, the joy of hosting and being a guest, the sharing of food at harvest time, the appreciation of the children's artwork, and perhaps the more sophisticated art, decorating the makeshift walls of the sukkah, the twinkling of the stars through the boughs of the necessarily insubstantial roofing of our booths. All of this and more is what we call to mind from the actual sukkah booths in which we have celebrated the holiday. But we also need to keep in mind what the sukkah symbolizes, trusting not in the sturdy walls of our so-called permanent homes, but in the shelter of God's protection. Even the sturdiest dwelling is temporary when we consider it from the perspective of heaven, in whose sight, quote, Elef shanim, 1,000 years is like a day, and the years of our lives ka'ashmura balayla, like a watch in the night. Psalm 90, verse 4. In the truly long view, it becomes clear that our best-built bomb shelter is only for the short term. And the way to make our finite days touch the infinite is to see the symbol concretized in the object. When we sit down in the sukkah, let us keep in mind the verse, Ki yitzpeneni b'sukko b'yom ra'ah. God placing me in God's sukkah in the day of trouble. Psalm 27, verse 5. As the next verse promises, V'ata yarum roshi, now shall my head be lifted up. When we understand what the holiday is really about, we will remember the ephemeral nature of the here and now, and the imperative to make each day count in our courtship with the transcendent. Shalom.